Love, light, and blessings. This is Shamanic White Priestess here. And I wanted to make this video for a while now, but I was afraid of coming off, offensive and things like that. Because one thing I don't like to do is ever offend anybody or make anybody feel less than or make anybody feel like I think my path is the only path or that my path is the better path. I feel like we all have our calling, we all have our gifts, and we all have a form of spirituality that works best for us. And today's topic is going to be why I don't consider myself a pagan. So I grew up with a mother who, I always tell people I grew up in witchcraft. My mother's older, so it wasn't like people in my family were going around calling themselves brujas and witches. Now that I'm older and when my mom started teaching me things, I realized when I started being around other people and having conversations that what she was in fact teaching me and what in fact I learned from my grandmother and my great-grandmother was indeed witchcraft. So I do come from a family of tradition, and I've talked to clients as well that have come from families that have lineages to certain closed traditions and things like that, that they grew up seeing certain things, and when they got older, they knew that it wasn't part of the mainstream religious practices, and they later found out that it was witchcraft as well, because it was something that you just really practiced in secret. My mom wasn't sitting there, you know what I'm saying, even explaining some things. I've had some scary experiences and just didn't understand them, and my mom pretty much just wouldn't explain stuff. So I it's the reason why, and I made a video about this, and I'm going to be releasing that video too, why I went down the fundamentalist Christian path in my teenage years and things like that. It was a lot of fear of things that I saw growing up. With that being said, another reason why I didn't know my mom practiced witchcraft is because my mom was also very, very heavily Catholic. And she always said she was Catholic, but I noticed, like, as I got older, she wasn't really practicing what people traditionally would consider Catholicism, because she was also doing spells and things like that with the saints, which I later found out were actually synchronized with orishas and laws and things of that nature. So I didn't understand these things. So for me, growing up, and even when I came back into my path, my cultural path, and my calling, because fundamentalist Christianity wasn't for me, I've never seen, and I guess that's when I went into fundamentalist Christianity, was the clash that I had. I didn't really see a difference between witchcraft and Christianity. It went hand in hand. I later found out the names. Like, we weren't calling things hoodoo and voodoo and santeria. It was just what we did. It was the very breath that we took, the very blood in our body. To us, spirituality was in our everyday life. It was what we were. It is what we are. You know what I mean? So it wasn't separate. It was just a part of what you do, just like eating, just like breathing, just like bathing. It wasn't something we thought about. It was just the way it was. And when I got into YouTube and started watching videos about 3 or 4 years ago, I watched like Carmen A. Scheid. She did like more new age stuff. Well, 5 years now, actually, lies. Yeah, my daughter's 6. Yeah, no, she was about a year old. I've been reading professionally now for 7 years. Yeah, sorry. So 6 years ago, 6 years ago, I discovered a channel, Carmen A. Scheid. And I don't think she makes videos anymore. She was more like new agey, angel. And that's how I softened myself into it. But I was still working with saints and I was working with angels. I wasn't calling them anything but saints. and doing spell work and doing things I saw my mom do. And, I've already explained that. Like, my son's 13 now. So 14 years ago, my mom started training me, so on and so forth. So, because I kind of like already said that story, like there's a lot of older videos that go more into details with that. And I will be touching more on that the second episode of my paranormal series, but because I want to kind of keep this video short and sweet. So when I got back into my calling and things like that 15 years ago, and really heavily getting into, I did dabble here and there, still practicing hoodoo, still practicing my spirituality, but also dabbling in new age and things like that, because then I started thinking, well, maybe I'm doing something bad, because some personal things happened, and I just started always in the light, never wanting to acknowledge shadow, and that wasn't good because it led to even more darker things, which I'll get into in later videos on my paranormal series. So I hope you guys stay tuned to that and watch that, because I'm going to really explain a lot of things about myself. You get to know me a little bit more intimately in that series. And pretty much I ended up, going back to my roots and things like that. I did study during that time where I was trying to find myself. I then about 5 years ago, I discovered Truth and Story, Kelly from Truth and Story, and I started watching her channel and things like that. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really watch her channel anymore, but I did when I first. Nothing that's wrong with the channel. I just, I don't really buy a lot of decks anymore. I used to watch it because I was trying to expand my deck collection. I didn't know much about like decks and stuff like that because for those that have been following me for a while, I grew up using no tools, playing cards, and then someone did a professional reading, and it was the first time I ever seen the Rider-Waite. I didn't even know the name of the deck, and ended up like, discovering Doreen Virtue, stuff like that. And eventually, found out the name of the deck was the Rider-Waite, started studying that and using that in my professional readings and things like that. But when I was watching her channel, she used the term pagan. I have never heard of the term pagan, so I looked it up. I got really fascinated. And then I started, like, I was still practicing my stuff. Had some, like, really traumatic experiences happen. And due to my own ignorance, I thought, oh, maybe it's what I'm practicing that made that happen. So, like, again, I started getting into, like, all this new agey stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with the new age, but it was just like, it didn't help me, honestly. That path wasn't for me, and things was just getting so, things were getting so negative for me. I was really trying to find myself, and so I started to get a bunch of books. I went into like a buying spree of anything that had Wicca, paganism, and started just studying feverishly for like a year and a day. Started practicing that, and to be honest, and I'm not saying it's the practice itself, I just was still in a negative place in my life, and it just wasn't a path that resonated with me. I tried to celebrate the Sabbats, and it just didn't resonate with me. I was doing it because everybody else was doing it. It wasn't something that spoke to my soul. I did have some beautiful experiences with God and goddess energies, and things like that. What people will call God and goddess energies, I would call them deities, but a lot of people will call them God and goddesses. So I did have, encounters with Serunos. I did have encounters with the Green Man. I did have encounters with Mother Gaia, and they were beautiful encounters. I also had an encounter with Hecate in a very bad situation in my life, in a near-death experience. So I did actually experience these spirits, but it wasn't the path for me. I didn't like the restrictions that Wicca had with do no harm and the rules that they had in magical practices, because that didn't correlate with my code of ethics, and things like that. So that just was not the path for me. And the spirits that come, like the gods and everything like that, and the deities of paganism that come to me, but they kind of also left. And I started having dreams with my African spirits, and then that really started to call to me, and I really started to really get into it in the last 5 years, like the way I was when I first started. And a lot of things that I lost when I left my cultural path came back to me tenfold. And then I started, like, because I had started doing professional readings, left because of personal reasons, which I'll get more in detail with my paranormal series, and then came back and just came back strong within the last 5.5 years. I've been really doing this, and knock on wood, haven't left yet, because the spirits call me directly. Again, that I will also share in my paranormal video series. So please, like, again, watch it. It's gonna be good. And so when I found out that it was my calling, I started shifting away from the Sabbaths and started practicing my magical practice without those rules of do no harm and you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, because that is not the way my mom taught me. My mom pretty much never taught me that, oh, this has karma and things like that. Not saying that that's may not be true for somebody else. It's not good to do this and that and the other. My mom's like, it's you're allowed to hex when it's justified, and like, it just went against like what my mom taught me, and it made me feel like when I was practicing paganism, like a detachment to my culture personally, because I practice African traditional religions. And I'm not saying that if you practice that, you can't consider yourself a pagan. That's individual. But for me personally, I just don't. I feel like African traditional religions, such as Santeria, Hoodoo, and Haitian voodoo could stand on its own. Like, Haitian voodoo, it's a religion on its own. It doesn't really need to have like another term over it, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I just like saying I practice African traditional religious practices. It just makes me feel a tie to my ancestors that came before me, that came from the diaspora, and things like that. And instead of Sabbaths, I went back to what I was always doing, which was celebrating feast days. Like, Halloween is a feast day, the Saints' Day, the feast days of the spirits that I serve. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's why I don't consider myself a pagan. I also do believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in Jehovah. In my practice, the Bible is very fundamental and important. And do I believe everything in the Bible is correct? No, I don't. Do I believe that things got lost in translation? Yes. Do I consider myself a Christian witch? No. I consider myself a voodoo sant. And in Haitian voodoo, I'm not speaking about African voodoo, and I'm not speaking about Ifa, which doesn't have necessarily any type of Christian correlations. I'm from the Caribbean. So Christianity, for a lot of us, goes hand in hand with witchcraft. We just don't call it witchcraft. It's just something that you do. It is something you do to survive. Our ancestors have been doing it for hundreds and thousands of years, and it's just a way of life for us. We'll go to church on Sunday and be okay with it. There's a guardian angel behind me. I don't see a separation between angels, Jesus Christ, Jehovah, the Holy Trinity, and me serving the laws and the Orishas, because we believe that there's one main creator, and then the Orishas are extensions of that. There are other spiritual beings, but even the Orishas and the laws, which are our ancestral spirits or our deities, because some of them weren't alive, are still extensions of one main source and creator. So I am monotheistic. Even though I have experienced God and goddesses, I still believe goddess and gods to be kind of more like Orishas and Loas, like saints. I believe some of them were humans and then they ascended to spiritual beings, but that even they, and I'm not trying to offend anybody, still have one main creator. I believe in one creator God. I don't profess to know exactly who God is, what God is. You know what I mean? I'm not professing to say I practice the only true religion in the world. But this is just my personal truth. And so sometimes I feel a little left out, because a lot of people that I follow are pagan. A lot of people that have channels are pagan. And I love watching them, of course, and things like that. But there aren't really that many channels with people that follow my path. And if they are, they usually speak Spanish or something like that. They don't really speak English and things of that nature. So that's why I made a channel. I just wanted to like add my little voice to the pot. I think that diversity is beautiful. I think that different voices in the community are much needed because it gives people a different perspective, and things of that nature. So that's why I don't consider myself a pagan. It's a cultural thing for me. I like to say I practice African traditional religious practices. It doesn't mean that I don't respect paganism. It's just something I don't practice. Just like I, practiced Wicca for like a year and a day, and then, I felt like it wasn't a path for me, and I went back to my main religion. But I respected that. I did have good experiences with it. But in my personal opinion, I just find more balance. And I don't know, there's just this feeling that I get practicing a close traditional religion. And again, it's not better than anybody else's. So please, 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 my subscribers, do not get offended by this video because I'm not trying to offend you. But there's just a certain tie that I feel when the Loas came back into my life and the Orishas, and I stopped being afraid of, oh, I can't do this because it's of the devil. When I just accepted that I do have certain, I'm not going to say dogma, but connections with Catholicism. I still go to Mass and I still feel something, but at the same time, I still practice my voodoo, I still practice my hoodoo, and I still practice my Santeria. That lives in harmony with me now. Because that's the way my mother did it and my grandmother did it. And it works for me. Catholic prayers are so integral and so like the foundations of my spiritual practice. And that's what I didn't get when I was doing paganism, because I thought I had to like separate Christ from paganism, because I know a lot of people have like an aversion to, at least the people I've seen on videos, to any type of Christian imagery. And I think that's why I love Right Away so much, because it does have Christian imagery. I mean, the Ace of Cup is literally a Catholic chalice. Okay, it represents the Catholic Church, when you're taking that communion, when you are communing with the Spirit, when you take, when you are eating, when you're doing communion, when you're doing your communion, you're drinking and eating what they believe to be like a symbolism of the body of and the blood of Christ. You know what I mean? So the Ace of Cups is very Catholic. They have a Pope card, for goodness sake. So I have a strong connection with Catholicism, with Christianity. I still go to church, like I say, every Sunday. I am someone who's an ordained minister because I do plan to, I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say it on YouTube. I am planning to create, well, you know what? I'm going to leave that for another video, because sometimes I like to say, I want to say things when it's almost there, but it hasn't 100% got there. I've talked to certain people, they know who they are, about certain plans that I have. Until it comes to fruition, not going to say what it is. I'll save that for another day. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Like, I respect people that practice paganism, and I think it's a beautiful religion. Like, I practice it, but I just consider myself someone who practices the ATRs, African traditional religious practices. I just have a tie to the Caribbean, and I like using that, because then when people like, what are you? They kind of get the point when I say African. Oh, you're Caribbean, you have African descent. It's just easier to identify myself, and things like that. So I'm not saying there isn't anything to being a crystal pagan, because there are people that are like, well, I'm a crystal pagan. But that's another label that doesn't resonate with me either. I just feel comfortable calling myself a voodoo san, if you will, or even just one word, root worker, someone who works the root. You know what I mean? So bruja, witch, like those titles feel more like they relate to me. So yeah. So much love, light, and blessings. Hopefully this was a rambly. Hopefully like it didn't offend anybody, because I always try to come from a place of love. But I feel like there's other people outside of me who also feel like I don't really consider myself a pagan, but I feel part of the spiritual community, and I kind of don't feel like it at times. I feel like call yourself what you want to call yourself. You don't have to necessarily go with the title that most people call themselves. Be yourself, you know what I mean? And things like that. I was recently watching a live stream with Raw Spirit, and she was talking about how she experiences goddess, and sometimes how like her and she was talking to oh my god, is it the Moonland? I don't want to say her name wrong, but I'm gonna try to I'm gonna try to oh my goodness, get her name correct. I don't want to missay her name, but I think it's the Moonland or the Woodland Hag. The Woodland Hag or the Moonland Hag. If I mispronounced it, I apologize. But she was doing a live stream with her, and they were talking about that, and I was like, it was very fascinating. Those are the kind of videos I love. I love when people talk about their beliefs, and if it's like outside of mainstream or what you usually see, those videos resonate with me because I feel like we should all speak our truth and not be afraid of backlash. You know, Soul's Journey did a video the other day about paganism and commercialism, and she was afraid of getting flamed for it. And I thought it was one of her best videos because she spoke her truth. And I just want to encourage people in the community, like, don't be afraid, like, speak your truth. You will be surprised how many people might feel the same way that you do, but are also afraid to talk about it for the same reasons that you don't talk about it. And when you do that, you might have like two haters, but you might actually find even your tribe or a even bigger, broader community that feels the same way you do. So you may actually find out you're not so alone. So that's what may happen when after I download this video. So if you want to work with me one-on-one, shamanic@priestess.com. If you want to work with me one-on-one, shamanic@priestess.com. I do psychic readings. I do mediumship. I do mentorship. I do rituals. I do spell work. So obras, trabajos. I'm a shaman, so a shaman by birthright and lineage, and a traditional shaman. And I can do a shaman ceremony for you in spiritual healings. If you have like any type of ancestral native spirits, I can help you with these things, and soul retrievals and all that wonderful stuff. So there's a lot of things that I can do, and I would love to do for anyone who needs my services. So shamanic@priestess.com. Please like, please subscribe, and comment below. Your comments mean everything to me. I don't see feedback, I make less videos, because then I feel like I'm not talking to anybody, nobody cares about my content, and I'm like wasting my time. So you guys know that's been following me for a while. Comments are everything to me. I do answer my comments for the most part. So much love and blessings. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. And until the next video, bye.